Happy Sunday, everyone. This is Julie HR, and I'm super excited to bring you the new employee onboarding plan template. If you've ever wondered how to onboard your new employees, now you'll know, now you'll have all the answers, and you'll be ready to go forward in doing so. So let's take a look. However, question number one, what is onboarding? Is onboarding orientation? Is orientation onboarding? I'm kind of confused. Well, the answer is actually orientation is an activity within the onboarding process. And with this table of contents, you'll see that we're going to go over pre-boarding, orientation, training activities, onboarding roadmap, and evaluation. Now, please note with this template, I have incorporated my own verbiage of just a particular onboarding employee. You're going to want to change this for, your company, your resources, and the position. So keep that in mind. Pre-boarding. Okay, this is before day one. Okay, pretty obvious. You want to send that new employee a welcome letter, an email, a video, get them excited. I always go ahead and send them new hire paperwork just so they can go ahead and jump start the process so they can get things done before day one. You want to go ahead and, get them involved in the culture and understanding and helping them along and feeling like they belong as soon as possible. Another thing you want to do is start drafting that 30, 60, 90 day plus plan. You want to give them an idea when they get there, what's expected of them. Expectations are key. So keep that in mind. Of course, before day one, you're probably going to have a separate checklist. And if you don't, there's one in my Etsy store that takes you step by step of what you need to do before day one, such as, set the email address, system tools, what folders do they have permission to? Do they have permission to the finance folder, the operations folder, the marketing folder? They're also going to need passwords. Obviously, they're going to need an ID and access and security. And you're also going to want to set up their office, put supplies in there, order a computer, ensure that the computer is loaded with the correct programs and whatnot. So this is all before day one. Okay. Employee orientation. I typically hold my employee orientations on day one. So what is employee orientation? Well, it's a time to typically meet with other new hires. If your company is smaller, then it may just be a one-on-one, but I like to use a PowerPoint and something for employees to look at. If you don't have an employee orientation PowerPoint, there's also an employee orientation PowerPoint within my Etsy store. But essentially, these are the steps that are within the orientation. Number one, you want to welcome the new hires. Ensure that new hire paperwork you gave them in pre-boarding is completed, along with some HR announcements. You want the employee to understand the history, the org structure, the vision, mission, and company values. You also want to make a reference of how their position is integral to the overall arching mission statement and goals of the company. So how do the employees fit in? You also want to talk about easy breezy, the payroll. When is it? How do people clock in, clock out, direct deposit? So you want to talk about compensation. Right here, number 4, you're going to talk about benefits, health insurance, basic life, AD&D, time off, PTO, holiday, any kind of benefits that you have within the company. Also, you want to do a safety overview within the orientation. You don't want to take a deep dive into safety, but you do want to cover some of the main points, because essentially OSHA will require you to have a safety orientation of some type, which I also have on my Etsy site if you want to take a look, which covers items, in depth that are compliance related. But in the safety overview in the orientation is you talk about the fire evacuation plan, the hazard communication policy, PPE, personal protective equipment, workplace ergonomics, and emergency preparedness. Like, what if there's a fire? What if there's a tornado? What if there is, a major storm? What's going to happen? So you'll go over that in orientation. Remember, orientation is a one-time event. It typically lasts 1 day, but it can last 2 days. It's just basically, it's more or less up to the HR person in charge. Also, you want to go over, like I said, expectations. You want to go over the policies. So you'll be covering policies within the HR orientation to include some of the main ones: attendance, code of conduct, harassment, discrimination, and so on. But you also want to make the employee orientation fun. And you also want to include a feedback type form at the end so they can give you ideas on how to make it better. This is the first time that you're really able to sit with the employees, go over what they need, and get them acclimated to the culture. One-time event. All right. So with that being said, you got to think outside of orientation. Okay. You have these employees, right? You're going to want to make these slides or whatever, or you may want to actually make them, Word documents or whatnot, different for each type of activity. But here are some of the training activities that go into effect when you are onboarding. When you're onboarding, this is going to be a process. It's not a 1-day process. It's not a 2-day process. It's not a 3-day process. Onboarding stands from pre-boarding, 30, 60, 90. And along the way, you're going to introduce the employees to different types of training, whether it be instructor-led, shadowing, field training, e-learning, and I highly recommend mentorship programming. A mentorship program where you have one-on-one mentorship with the new hire to make them feel valued and help make sure that they understand what they're doing within their role. And here you have the different types of instructor-led trainings. Of course, it's going to be different for each role, but you could standardize it on some level. Onboarding path to productivity. Now, this particular template right here, you probably, if you've followed me for a while, you'll know that this is a key template within my onboarding, within my Etsy store. It is in a Word document. And here you have onboarding path to productivity. So here you have your whole entire onboarding process. Now like you said, like we were talking about earlier, here's pre-boarding, orientation. Like I said, it can be a couple days or whatnot. Ramp up, day 30, day 60, day 90, and then 90 plus. So that's what you're looking at. And you're looking at the new hire, the onboarding, like remember we discussed the welcome, the new hire paperwork, remember the IT setup, prepping the supplies, the computer, and not to mention the supervisor is going to play a key role within this onboarding process, as there are going to be times where the employee will need to meet with their supervisor to understand their weekly assignments. You want to give that new hire assignments even during their first week. You want to get them into the groove of understanding the ins and outs of their role. So that being said, this is the onboarding path to productivity. So once the onboarding is completed, and I would say, I think onboarding is pretty much an ongoing thing. Employees are constantly learning, but it's those first 90 days that make an employee want to stay or want to leave. So it is up to you as an HR professional to ensure that expectations were met and the employee was set up for success. However, you want to ensure that there's also an evaluation. So with that being said, you want to understand, how did the employee do as it relates to their onboarding program? So here are different levels of reaction. Here are some objectives, the evaluation methods, when they are held, and who is responsible. So an example, you most definitely want to ensure that your new hire who's being onboarded, you're measuring learning and their knowledge retention. So how are you going to do that? Well, you're going to do that via quizzes and knowledge checks, and you want to do it throughout the training and at key milestones. And this can be done by the HR trainer or the learning specialist or whatnot. It's important to find out that the employees are understanding their role within the organization. Onboarding is just not a one-day thing. It's an ongoing process, and it's key that you as an HR professional understand the different steps and your role within it. As, like I mentioned, 90 days, that's when an employee decides to stay or leave. If you have any questions, please let me know. The link to purchase this onboarding plan is actually going to be on my Etsy site, and it'll be a link in the YouTube description. Thank you so much, and have a wonderful day.